The UH-60 Black Hawk shuddered. Not the usual turbulence, this was metal tearing. Claire Donovan felt the airframe lurch sideways before her brain caught up. Sparks erupted from the starboard engine. The pilot screamed into comms. Then the world tilted. She grabbed the bench restraint, but the explosion ripped her through the open cabin door. Pine trees became a green blur. Her helmet smashed into a branch. Radio static died to silence. When she woke, a rifle barrel pressed against her sternum. An old man's face, weathered like canyon rock, stared down. Her hands, sticky, blood, not hers. On a makeshift table behind him, surgical tools, military grade, classified serial numbers. "If you report this location," he said, "many people will die. Again." The dawn smelled like JP-8 fuel and instant coffee. Claire Donovan stood on the tarmac at Forward Operating Base Sentinel, Montana Army National Guard's newest high-altitude training facility. 300 miles of wilderness in every direction, perfect for what the Army called realistic combat medical simulation. Claire called it controlled chaos. She checked her med kit for the 4th time. Morphine, auto-injectors, combat gauze, chest seals, everything where it belonged. That's what separated good medics from dead ones. Obsessive preparation. "Donovan, you're up." Chief Warrant Officer Hayes appeared beside her, flight helmet tucked under one arm. 53, helicopter pilot for 30 years, flew Apaches in Iraq. Now he ran medevac drills for baby-faced National Guard medics who thought trauma medicine meant suturing practice dummies. "Standard extraction scenario?" Claire asked. "Negative, change of plans." Hayes pulled a laminated card from his flight suit. "Intel suggests possible hostiles in Sector 7. We're doing a real-world flyover, then pulling a training squad that's been out there 4 days. Should be routine, but command wants eyes on." Claire felt her stomach tighten. Routine. That word meant different things to pilots and medics. For pilots, routine meant no SAM systems. For medics, it meant carrying body bags just in case. "Hostiles?" She kept her voice level. "In Montana?" "Militia activity, probably nothing," Hayes shrugged. "Some prepper types playing soldier. But after that thing in Idaho last year, command's jumpy. We fly high, we fly fast. We extract the training team. We're back for lunch." Claire nodded. She joined the Army Reserve to pay for nursing school, ended up deploying to Syria as a combat medic, came home with a combat medical badge and nightmares about arterial spray. The National Guard was supposed to be quieter. Floods, wildfires, the occasional search and rescue, not hostiles. "Wheels up in 5, Hayes said, walking toward the Black Hawk. Claire grabbed her rifle, an M4 she'd fired maybe twice since redeployment, and followed. The helicopter crew chief, a kid named Ramirez who couldn't be older than 22, helped Claire strap into the troop bench. The cabin smelled like hydraulic fluid and the faint ghost of vomit from some previous airsick passenger. "First medevac?" Ramirez asked, checking her harness. "3rd this month," Claire said, "but first with a hostile warning." Don't sweat it. Hayes is paranoid. Last week he called an abort because he saw a guy with binoculars. Turned out to be a birdwatcher." Claire didn't laugh. Paranoia kept people alive. The rotors spun up. That deep thrum that rattled your chest cavity turned conversation impossible. Hayes's voice crackled through her helmet comms. "All stations, we are go for departure. Flight time 23 minutes. Weather is clear, ceiling at 12,000. Stay sharp." The Black Hawk lifted. Claire watched the base shrink below. Neat rows of barracks, the motor pool, the hospital tent where she'd spent the last 6 months teaching trauma protocols to teenagers who still thought war was a video game. Then the wilderness swallowed them. The mountains looked different from above. Not the postcard version tourists saw. This was raw topography, ridge lines like exposed bone, forests so thick you couldn't see the ground. Claire understood why the training teams hated this place. Easy to get lost, easier to get hurt. Sector 7 coming up, Hayes announced. Training team should be at grid coordinates. The explosion cut him off. Not an explosion, a impact, metallic. Claire's brain took half a second to process. We've been hit. The starboard engine erupted in flame. The helicopter yawed hard right. Ramirez shouted something in Spanish, prayer or curse, Claire couldn't tell. The airframe shuddered like a dying animal. Mayday! 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 Hayes fought the controls. Black Hawk 7-3 taking fire, losing altitude. Another impact. This one punched through the cabin floor, missed Claire's boot by inches. She saw daylight through the hole, saw the forest spinning below. Bail out, Hayes screamed. Bail! The cabin door ripped open, not from the crew chief, from physics. The Black Hawk rolled inverted, and Claire felt her harness buckle snap. She grabbed for the bench restraint, fingers closing on air. Then she was falling. Time fractured. She saw the helicopter above her, rotors chewing smoke. Saw Ramirez still strapped in, his face a mask of terror. Saw Hayes wrestling the stick, trying to auto-rotate a bird that had no business staying airborne. Then the trees caught her. Pine branches slapped her helmet, her shoulders, her legs. Each impact a new vector of pain. She tried to curl into a ball, protect her core, but momentum had other plans. A thick branch caught her tactical vest, spun her sideways. Her rifle sling snapped. The M4 tumbled into the green below. She hit something solid, a trunk. Her left shoulder took the impact, and she heard a crack that might have been wood or bone. Couldn't tell. Didn't matter. The world went black. Pain woke her. Specific pain. Left shoulder, right ribs, a hot line across her forehead that meant blood. Claire opened her eyes and saw wooden rafters. Not a field hospital, not a rescue station. A cabin, log walls, a single kerosene lamp. She tried to sit up, couldn't. Something held her down. Don't move. A man's voice, gravel and cigarettes. You've got a grade 2 AC separation. Move wrong, it becomes grade 3, and I'll have to sedate you to pop it back in. Claire's vision cleared. The man stood beside a workbench, 70s, maybe older, with a face like leather left in the sun too long. Gray beard, unkempt. Flannel shirt rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms corded with old muscle and older scars. And in his right hand, a Remington 870 shotgun, barrel pointed at her chest. Who are you? Claire's voice came out hoarse. The guy who pulled you out of a tree. He tilted his head. You're welcome, by the way. She looked down. Someone had cut away her tactical vest, her uniform blouse. She wore a sports bra and field dressing across her ribs. Professional work, not the panicked wrap of a civilian, but the efficient layers of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. My crew, helicopter crashed 2 miles east, burned. If there were survivors, they're not walking out. He said it like a weather report. No emotion, just facts. Claire's chest tightened. Hayes, Ramirez, dead. You need to call for rescue, she said. I'm a U.S. Army medic. There's a protocol. No rescue. The old man set the shotgun on the workbench, but kept his hand near it. No radio, no phone, no protocol. What? You report this location, you bring people here. People come here, people die. He walked to the lamp, adjusted the wick. His shadow stretched across the wall like something predatory. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. Claire's eyes adjusted to the dim light. She saw the workbench more clearly now. Surgical instruments, scalpels, retractors, a field suture kit in military-grade packaging, and something else, a device she recognized from advanced trauma training, an emergency war surgery manual, spine cracked from use, margins filled with handwritten notes. "You're a doctor," she said. "Was." He turned back to her. "Long time ago." "Then you understand medical ethics. I need evacuation. I need—" "You need to shut up and listen." He stepped closer, not threatening, just final. 3 hours ago, you fell out of the sky into a place that doesn't exist. You have two choices. You heal here, quiet, and I get you out when it's safe. Or you make noise, and we both end up in body bags. You're insane. No. He picked up the shotgun again. I'm careful. There's a difference. Claire stared at him, at the gun, at the surgical tools that shouldn't exist in a hermit's cabin in the Montana wilderness. "What's your name?" she asked. He paused, like the question required calculation. "Crowe," he finally said. "Dr. Elias Crowe. And before you ask, no, I'm not in any database. I don't exist. Haven't for 23 years. Crowe let her sit up, but only after he'd checked her shoulder with hands that moved like a surgeon's. Firm, precise, knowing exactly where to press to assess damage. Claire hissed when his fingers found the AC joint. "Not separated," he said, "just pissed off. You'll heal in 2 weeks if you don't do anything stupid." "Stupid like what?" "Like trying to run." He handed her a canteen. Water, cold and metallic. "You're 20 miles from the nearest road. Even if you knew which direction to walk, which you don't, you wouldn't make it 3 miles on that shoulder." Claire drank. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I'm a doctor." Old habits. Crowe walked to the workbench, started cleaning a scalpel with isopropyl alcohol. "Also because if you die here, I have to bury you, and the ground's half frozen this time of year." Touching. "I'm not a sentimental man, miss." He glanced at her. "What's your name?" "Donovan. Claire Donovan, Specialist, U.S. Army Reserve." "Well, Specialist Donovan, you're in a situation." Crowe set down the scalpel. "Your helicopter didn't crash because of mechanical failure. Someone shot you down." Claire's stomach dropped. "How do you know?" "Because I heard it. 2 rifle shots, high caliber, probably .50 BMG. One hit your engine, one hit your tail rotor. Whoever fired those shots knew what they were doing." "Militia?" Maybe something else." Crowe's eyes narrowed. "You know what grid coordinates you were flying over?" "Sector 7. Training exercise." "No training exercise in Sector 7. Not for 6 months. Army shut that area down last fall after—" He stopped himself. "Doesn't matter. Point is, somebody fed you bad intel. Sent you into a kill zone." Claire felt cold. Not from the cabin, from the implication. "You're saying someone in my chain of command set us up?" "I'm saying you're alive and your crew isn't, and that math doesn't add up unless somebody wanted you dead." Crowe pulled a chair over, sat down facing her. "How long you been in the Army?" 5 years, deployed once." "Combat?" "Syria, 2023. "See anything unusual? Piss anybody off?" "No, I'm a medic. I keep my head down and I save lives." Claire's voice hardened. "That's all I do." "Medics see things," Crowe said quietly. "Treat the wrong person, overhear the wrong conversation. You'd be surprised how dangerous that can be." He stood up, walked to a cabinet, pulled out a bottle of whiskey, poured 2 fingers into a tin cup, handed it to her. "Drink. It'll help with the pain." Claire took the cup. The whiskey burned going down, but it did help. A little. "What did you do?" she asked. "Before you stopped existing?" Crowe's face went flat. "I saved people." "That's what doctors do." "No." He poured himself a drink. "Doctors heal people. I save them. There's a difference." Claire slept, not because she felt safe, but because her body demanded it. When she woke again, pale sunlight filtered through cracks in the cabin walls. Morning, maybe noon. Time felt slippery. Crowe sat at the workbench reading a file folder. Old paper yellowed at the edges. He didn't look up when she stirred. "Feeling better?" he asked. Comparatively, Claire tested her shoulder. Still hurt, but manageable. How long was I out? 6 hours. You needed it. She stood, wobbled, caught herself on the wall. Crowe still didn't look up from his reading. Claire moved closer, trying to see what held his attention. A photograph slipped out of the folder. Black and white. A military hospital tent. A surgical team in old-style fatigues, circa 1990s. And in the center, young, unsmiling, holding a scalpel like a weapon, Elias Crowe. Desert Storm? Claire asked. Classified operation. Never happened. Crowe closed the folder. You shouldn't be walking. You said I wasn't supposed to run. Walking's different. Smartass. Claire reached for the folder. Crowe pulled it away, but not before she saw the stamp on the cover. Top secret //SCI//NOFORN. Jesus, she whispered. You're Black Ops. Was. Past tense matters. What did you do? Crowe stood, towering over her. For a moment she thought he might throw her out of the cabin. Instead, he walked to the door, opened it, gestured outside. Come see. Claire followed, shoulder screaming with each step. The forest surrounded them. Dense pine, no trails visible. But 50 yards from the cabin, near a clearing, she saw disturbed earth. Fresh. Recent. What is that? She asked. Grave. Crowe's voice was flat. 3 weeks old. Guy stumbled into my woods with a compound fracture and sepsis. I fixed the fracture, gave him antibiotics, saved his life. So 2 days later, 6 more guys showed up looking for him. They weren't friends, they were hunters. Crowe turned to face her. I had a choice. Give him up, let them kill him, or fight. What did you do? I fought, killed 4 of them. The other 2 ran. He pointed at the grave. But the guy I saved, he died anyway. Infection I missed. All that death, and I still failed. Claire stared at him. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked what I did. This is what I do. I save people, and people die anyway. Crowe started walking back to the cabin. You want to call for rescue? Fine. But when they come, they won't just extract you. They'll ask questions. They'll find this place. And everybody who knows about me, everybody who remembers what I used to do, they'll come too. Come for what? Crowe stopped at the cabin door. To finish the job they started 23 years ago. Before Claire could respond, she heard it. Faint, distant, the unmistakable thrum of rotor blades. A helicopter. Crowe's face went pale. Get inside, now! Claire didn't move. The helicopter sound grew louder, not the heavy pulse of a Black Hawk, but something lighter. A civilian bird, maybe a Bell or an Airbus. I said get inside, Crowe hissed. That could be search and rescue. It's not. He grabbed her good arm, pulled her toward the cabin. Search and rescue flies grid patterns. That bird's circling. They're hunting. Inside, Crowe killed the kerosene lamp, moved to a gun cabinet Claire hadn't noticed before. He pulled out a rifle, not the shotgun, something more serious. An AR-10 with a magnified optic and what looked like a homemade suppressor. You keep that thing loaded? Claire asked. Always. Crowe moved to the window, cracked the shutters an inch. 6 rules for living off-grid. Rule 1. Assume everybody who finds you wants you dead. Rule 2. Be right about Rule 1. The helicopter passed overhead. Low, maybe 200 feet. Claire heard the change in engine pitch as it slowed, began a hover pattern. They're landing, Crowe said. How do you know? Because that's what I do. He glanced at her. You ever fire a rifle in combat? I'm a medic. We're supposed to be non-combatants. That's a no. Crowe pulled a second rifle from the cabinet, an old M16A2, Vietnam-era furniture, but well-maintained. He checked the chamber, handed it to Claire. Safety's here, selector's here, 30-round magazine. Point and shoot. Don't aim for the head, aim center mass. Understand? Claire took the rifle. It felt heavier than she remembered from basic training. I'm not killing anyone. Then you're going to die. Crowe moved back to the window. Your choice. The helicopter sound died. Silence rushed in to fill the void. Claire heard wind in the pines, heard her own heartbeat, heard Crowe's breathing, slow, controlled, the rhythm of a man who'd done this before. How many? She whispered. Won't know until they move. Crowe settled the AR-10 against his shoulder, eye to the scope. But if they landed a light bird this far into the backcountry, they brought a team. 4, maybe 6. What do they want? Me, but now that you're here, they'll want you too. He adjusted his aim fractionally. They'll ask questions. Where I've been, what I know, who I've talked to. And if I don't know anything, they'll make sure. Crowe's voice was surgical. People like this don't leave witnesses. Claire felt her hands start to shake. She tightened her grip on the M16, trying to remember her training. Sight picture. Trigger control. Breathe. A branch snapped. Close. Maybe 50 yards. Crowe's finger moved to the trigger. Here we go. 3 men emerged from the tree line. Not soldiers, no uniforms, no insignia. But they moved like soldiers. Tactical formation. Proper spacing. Rifles up and ready. The lead man wore a black fleece jacket and a baseball cap. 40s, fit, with the kind of face that blended into crowds. He carried a suppressed carbine and moved like he owned the forest. Dr. Crowe, he called out, voice friendly, almost cheerful. I know you're here. We tracked the medevac crash, found the girl's gear about half a mile out. You always did have a soft spot for picking up strays. Crowe didn't respond. His eye never left the scope. We just want to talk, the man continued. No hard feelings about Idaho. That was business. This is personal. Claire leaned close to Crowe, whispered, Idaho? Later. We know you've been clean for 20 years, the man said. Stayed off the grid, didn't cause trouble. We respect that. But things have changed. Old files are being declassified. Old operations are getting new attention. We need to make sure certain stories stay buried. Translation, Crowe murmured to Claire. They're sanitizing witnesses. How many people have you killed? She asked. Today or in general? The man in the black fleece was getting closer. 30 yards now. His 2 companions fanned out, covering angles. Dr. Crowe, I'm going to count to 10. Then we're coming in. If you cooperate, this goes easy. If you don't, he shrugged. Well, accidents happen in the wilderness all the time. Crowe's breathing slowed. Claire recognized it. Combat breathing, the kind they taught in stress inoculation training. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. When I shoot, he said quietly, you run out the back door. There's a trail marked with orange tape. Follow it north for a mile. You'll hit a fire road. I'm not leaving you. You're not staying. Crowe's finger touched the trigger. I've done this dance before. I know how it ends. 1, the man called out. You save me, you save a medic, Claire said. I can help people. Isn't that what you do? 2, I save people so they don't become like me, Crowe said. 3, what if I'm already like you? Claire chambered around. The metallic sound echoed in the cabin. Crowe glanced at her. For the first time, something like respect flickered in his eyes. 4. Fine, Crowe said. You stay, you follow my orders. No hesitation, no conscience, just survival. 5. Deal. 6. Crowe squeezed the trigger. The suppressed shot was a whisper compared to what Claire expected. A soft crack like a branch breaking. The man in the black fleece jacket dropped mid-count, his 7 turning into a wet gurgle. His 2 companions reacted instantly. Professional. They scattered, finding cover behind trees, weapons up. Back door, Crowe said, already moving. He grabbed a go bag from under his cot, pre-packed, ready. Now. Claire ran. Her shoulder screamed, but adrenaline drowned the pain. The back door opened onto a narrow trail, barely visible through the underbrush. Orange tape marked a tree 10 yards out. Behind them, gunfire erupted. Not suppressed, full auto. Bullets chewed through the cabin's log walls like they were cardboard. "They brought friends," Crowe said, catching up to her. "Keep moving." The trail climbed, steep and treacherous. Claire's boots slipped on loose pine needles. Crowe moved ahead of her, somehow keeping pace despite being 40 years older. He moved like terrain was irrelevant. "How far?" Claire gasped. "1.5 miles to the fire road, then we have options." "Options like what?" "Run or fight. Haven't decided yet." More gunfire behind them. Closer. Claire heard voices, coordinated, tactical. These weren't random contractors, they were a team. "How many?" she asked. "Saw 6 total, killed 1. That leaves 5. Crowe stopped at a switchback, listened. "But they'll have called for backup. We've got maybe 30 minutes before this forest is crawling." "Called who?" "Whoever signs their checks." Crowe started moving again. "Could be agency, could be private, doesn't matter. They've got budget and they've got motivation." Claire's lungs burned. She wasn't in bad shape. Army PT kept her functional. But this was different. This was sustained, high-altitude exertion while injured and scared. "Why do they want you?" she asked between breaths. "Because I know things." "What things?" "Things that end careers, destroy legacies, put senators in prison." Crowe ducked under a low branch. "I was a field surgeon for operations that never happened. Treated people who were never there. Watched decisions get made that killed thousands." "And you just walked away?" "No." Crowe's voice went hard. "I ran. There's a difference." They reached a creek, shallow but fast-moving. Crowe waded in without hesitation. Claire followed, gasping as the cold water soaked through her boots. "We're leaving trail," she said. "That's the idea. Let them track us for a while." Crowe stopped mid-creek, pulled a small device from his pack. It looked like a GPS unit, but older. Military hardware. "Then we disappear." He pressed a button. Nothing happened. "What is that?" Claire asked. "Insurance." Crowe pocketed the device, kept moving upstream. "I've been off-grid for 20 years, but I'm not stupid. I kept insurance." "Against what?" "Against this." A helicopter passed overhead, fast, low. Not the same bird from before. This was military. A Black Hawk, maybe the same model Claire had fallen out of. "They're bringing everyone," Crowe said. "This just became a manhunt." The fire road was exactly where Crowe promised, a dirt track rutted and overgrown, but navigable. He led Claire east for 1/2 mile before cutting back into the forest. "I thought we were going to the road," she said. "That's what they'll think, too." Crowe pushed through a thicket of scrub oak. Never take the obvious route. 10 minutes later, they reached a second cabin, smaller than the first, partially hidden by a rockfall. Crowe moved to the door, checked something Claire couldn't see, a telltale maybe, or a trap, then unlocked it with a key from his pack. Inside was Spartan, a cot, a camping stove, cases of MREs stacked against one wall, and weapons, lots of weapons. "How many of these places do you have?" Claire asked. "Enough." Crowe locked the door behind them, wedged a chair under the handle. "We stay here 2 hours, let them chase ghosts. Then we move again." "To where?" "Haven't decided yet." He handed her an MRE. "Eat, you'll need the calories." Claire tore open the packet, beef stew allegedly. It tasted like salted cardboard, but she was hungry enough not to care. Crowe ate standing up, eyes on the window. "You said you treated people in operations that never happened," Claire said. "What kind of operations?" "The kind where the goal isn't to win. The goal is to manage." Crowe set down his MRE, pulled out a topographic map. Coup attempts that needed to succeed. Insurgencies that needed to fail. Peace talks that needed to collapse at exactly the right moment. "And you just followed orders?" "I saved lives." Crow's jaw tightened. That's all I did. I kept people alive so they could go back out and keep fighting. I didn't ask questions, didn't second guess. I was a surgeon, not a strategist. But you knew. Yeah, Crow's finger traced a route on the map. I knew. Claire finished her MRE, crumpled the wrapper. So what changed? Somalia, 1993. Crow looked up from the map. You ever hear about the Battle of Mogadishu? Black Hawk down. Everyone knows that story. You know the sanitized version. 2 birds down, 18 dead, heroic rescue. Crow's eyes went distant. You don't know about the prisoner. What prisoner? There was a warlord lieutenant, Hassan Keita. We captured him during the raid. High-value target, Intel gold mine. Crow sat down on the cot, suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. He took shrapnel to the femoral artery, should have bled out in minutes. But I was there. I clamped it, kept him alive. That's your job. I thought so too. Crow's voice dropped to almost a whisper. 3 weeks later, we released him, part of a prisoner exchange. 6 months after that, he orchestrated a massacre in Baidoa, killed 300 civilians, women, kids, everyone. Claire felt her stomach tighten. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? Crow looked at her. I saved him, knowing what he was, knowing what he'd do. And I told myself it didn't matter because I was just a doctor, just following orders, just doing my job. You didn't pull the trigger in Baidoa. No, but I made sure the trigger puller lived long enough to do it. Crow stood up, walked back to the window. That's when I realized, sometimes saving one life means ending 100 others. And no one ever tells you that in medical school. Outside, another helicopter passed. Lower this time. Searching. They're tightening the perimeter, Crow said. We need to move. They left the cabin through a tunnel, not a metaphor, an actual tunnel, dug into the hillside behind the structure. Crow had a flashlight, but he kept it off, navigating by touch. How long did it take you to dig this? Claire asked, stumbling in the darkness. 6 months, worth every blister. His voice echoed off stone. Paranoia is just pattern recognition for the future. The tunnel opened onto a ravine, steep-sided and choked with deadfall. Crow climbed down like a mountain goat. Claire followed more carefully, her shoulder protesting every handhold. At the bottom, they found a creek. Different from the first one, wider, deeper, moving faster. We follow this downstream for 2 miles, Crow said, then cut west to Highway 93. There's a truck stop. We can get transport. To where? Anywhere that isn't here. They waded into the creek. The water was waist-deep and cold enough to steal breath. Claire gritted her teeth, focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. You never answered my question, she said. Why are they hunting you now, after 20 years? Because someone's writing a book. Crow navigated around a boulder. Former agency guy, claims he's exposing the truth about 90s black ops. Problem is, the truth includes me. So kill the writer. They tried. He's got dead man switches, multiple copies of his manuscript in multiple locations. Only way to stop publication is to discredit his sources. Crow glanced back at her. I'm a source, sort of. He knows I exist, even if he doesn't know where. And if you're dead, you can't corroborate his story. Bingo. A sound ahead. Not natural. Mechanical. Crow froze, held up a fist. Military signal. Stop. Claire pressed herself against the creek bank. Listened. Voices. 2, maybe 3. Moving parallel to the creek, maybe 20 yards into the tree line. Lost the trail at the second cabin. They could be anywhere. IR drones up. If they're moving, we'll spot them. Crow's smart. He's had 20 years to prep. The voices faded. Crow waited another 2 minutes, then started moving again. Faster now. Urgent. They've got drones, he muttered. This just got harder. They reached a culvert. Concrete pipe, maybe 4 feet in diameter, buried under an old logging road. Crowe crawled inside. Claire hesitated, then followed. The pipe was dry, relatively speaking, cold but sheltered. Crowe wedged himself into the far end, pulled out a water bottle, drank. "We wait here until dark," he said. "Thermal imaging doesn't work as well when ambient temperature drops." Claire sat across from him, her back against the concrete. Her whole body ached. Her shoulder was on fire. She wanted to sleep for about 16 hours. "Tell me about Somalia," she said. "Why?" "Because I need to understand what kind of man you are. What kind of man is hunting us?" Crowe was quiet for a long moment. Outside, wind whispered through the trees. Somewhere distant, another helicopter. "Hassan Keita wasn't the first," Crowe finally said. "He was just the one that broke me." "Who was the first?" "Classified." Crowe's smile was bitter. "That's the funny part. Most of the people I saved, most of the people who went on to do terrible things, they're classified. I can't even tell you their names without violating about 6 different laws." "Try me." "Okay, let's talk hypothetically." Crowe leaned back against the pipe wall. "Let's say hypothetically there was an operation in Central America in 1987. And let's say a certain warlord, we'll call him Subject X, took a bullet to the chest during a raid." "Go on." "And let's say I performed a thoracotomy in the field, cracked his chest open right there on the jungle floor, fixed the heart laceration, saved his life." Crowe's eyes were distant now, seeing something Claire couldn't. 2 years later, Subject X led a paramilitary group that massacred an entire village, 16 families, mostly indigenous people who'd been helping American missionaries. Claire felt cold. "Why did you save him?" "Because I was ordered to. Because he had intelligence value. Because someone in Langley decided his life was worth more than theirs." Crowe looked at her. "But here's the thing, I knew. Even then I knew who he was, what he'd done, what he'd do again, and I saved him anyway." "You didn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice." Crowe's voice turned hard. "I chose career over conscience. I chose to be a good soldier instead of a good man. And I told myself it was okay because I wasn't the one pulling the trigger. I was just the mechanic, just keeping the machine running." "So what changed?" "Somalia, Keita, Baidoa." Crowe closed his eyes. 300 people. I saw the photos afterward. A journalist smuggled them out. Bodies stacked like cordwood. A girl, maybe 8 years old, holding her dead mother. And I knew that I'd put the bullet in the gun. I'd made sure the shooter survived to take that shot. Claire didn't know what to say. Medical ethics were supposed to be clear. Save everyone. Don't judge. Don't play God. But Crowe had played God, and God's choices had consequences. "So you ran," she said. "No, first I tried to do it right." Crowe opened his eyes. "I went to my CO, told him I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't keep saving people who shouldn't be saved." You know what he said? "What?" He said, "That's not your call, Captain. Your job is to keep them breathing. Someone else decides what they breathe for." Crowe's laugh was harsh. "Like I was a mechanic, like morality was above my pay grade." "So then you ran." "Then I reported everything to the Inspector General, wrote a 50-page report detailing every questionable operation I'd supported, every subject who should have died but didn't, every massacre that wouldn't have happened if I just let nature take its course." "What happened?" "The report disappeared. I got orders to a psychiatric evaluation. They were going to section me, diagnose me with PTSD, medically discharge me, discredit everything I said." Crowe's fists clenched. "So I ran, grabbed everything I could carry, every document I could copy, and disappeared into the wilderness. And they've been hunting you ever since." "Not hunting, monitoring. There's a difference. As long as I stayed quiet, stayed invisible, I wasn't worth the resources. But now," he gestured vaguely at the world outside the covert, "now I'm a liability, a loose end. A name in a manuscript that could unravel 20 years of carefully constructed lies. Claire processed this. Outside, the light was fading. Soon it would be dark enough to move. The people hunting us, she said, are they agency? Probably contractors. Agency doesn't like to get its hands dirty anymore. Too much congressional oversight. Crowe checked his watch. But they're agency funded, same difference. And they'll kill us both. You especially. Crowe looked at her. You're a witness. You've seen me. Talk to me. That makes you a security risk. I don't know anything. You know I exist. That's enough. Darkness fell. Crowe led them out of the covert, moving through the forest like a ghost. No flashlight, no sound. Just muscle memory and 2 decades of practice. Claire followed, her boots finding purchase on terrain she couldn't see. Every step was faith. Every breath was measured. She'd done night movements in Syria, knew the drill. But this was different. This wasn't a training exercise. This was survival. They reached a ridge overlooking a valley. Below, Claire saw lights, a road, maybe, or a small town. Crowe studied it through a pair of compact binoculars. That's Ovando, he said. 300 people. Gas station, bar, post office. Can we get help there? We can get notice there. Not the same thing. Crowe lowered the binoculars. But there's a guy who owes me a favor. Runs an outfitting business. If he's still alive and still friendly, he might loan us a truck. Might? I haven't talked to him in 8 years. People change. They started down the ridge. The descent was steep, treacherous in the dark. Claire's boots slipped on loose scree. Crowe caught her arm, steadied her. Careful. Break your leg out here, you're done. Thanks for the pep talk. Claire's shoulder throbbed with each step. She'd been running on adrenaline for hours, but the crash was coming. She could feel it, the shakes starting in her hands, the cold creeping in despite the exertion. You're going into shock, Crowe said, not even looking back. I can hear it in your breathing. I'm fine. You're a liar. He stopped, turned to face her. Sit, 60 seconds. We don't have... Sit. Claire sat. Crowe pulled a protein bar from his pack, broke it in half, handed her a piece. Eat. Your blood sugar's crashing. She ate. It tasted like sawdust and chemicals, but her body responded immediately. The shaking eased. The cold retreated slightly. Better? Crowe asked. Yeah. Good, because I need to tell you something, and I need you sharp when I do. He sat beside her, his rifle across his knees. Back at the cabin, you asked what changed. What made me run? I told you about Keita, about Baidoa. I remember. That wasn't all of it. Crowe stared out at the valley lights. The truth is uglier. Claire waited. She'd learned in Syria that silence was the best tool for getting soldiers to talk. Just wait, let the pressure build. Eventually they'd crack. There was a woman, Crowe said quietly. Somalia, local interpreter. She worked with UN forces. Smart, brave. She helped us identify targets, navigate the city. Without her, we'd have been blind. What happened to her? She got caught. Keita's men. Crowe's jaw tightened. They did things I won't describe. Then they dumped her at a UN checkpoint. Still alive. Barely. Claire felt her stomach turn. You tried to save her. I did save her. 8 hours of surgery, 3 units of blood, 16 liters of saline. I put her back together like a jigsaw puzzle. Crowe's hands clenched. And 3 days later, Keita's men came back, finished the job, shot her in her hospital bed. 11 rounds, made sure she suffered. Jesus. You want to know the worst part? Crowe looked at her. 2 weeks earlier, I'd saved Keita, patched the same artery that would have killed him. So in a way, I'm responsible. I kept the monster alive so he could kill the hero. Claire didn't know what to say. What could you say to that? After that, I started asking questions, Crowe continued. Started looking at the people I'd saved. Really looking. Their histories, their crimes, what they went on to do after I kept them breathing. He pulled out a small notebook worn at the edges. I made a list. Every questionable save. Every subject who went on to commit atrocities. He opened the notebook. Even in the darkness, Claire could see names. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. 47 confirmed kills, Crowe said, his voice dead. That's the conservative estimate. 47 people I saved who later murdered other people. If you include indirect deaths, massacres they ordered, operations they commanded, the number goes over 3,000. That's not on you. Isn't it? Crowe closed the notebook. I took an oath. First, do no harm. But what if saving one life causes more harm than letting them die? What if the Hippocratic oath is wrong? You can't think like that. You can't play God. But I did. Every time I chose to save someone, I played God. I just didn't want to admit it. Crowe stood up, holstered the notebook. The agency knew. My commanders knew. They'd bring me subjects and say, save this one, he's valuable. And I'd do it. Every time. Because that's what soldiers do. Follow orders. Don't ask questions. They were halfway down when Crowe stopped. Not because of terrain, because of a sound. Dogs. Shit, Crowe whispered. They brought trackers. Claire heard it now, baying, excited, getting closer. How far? She asked. Half-mile, maybe less. Crowe looked around, calculating. We can't outrun dogs. Not with your shoulder, not in the dark. So what do? Crowe pulled out his AR-10, checked the magazine. Full, 30 rounds of 7.62 NATO. Enough to solve problems if you were good enough. We thin the pack, he said. You're going to shoot the dogs? I'm going to shoot the handlers. The dogs are just doing their job. He moved to a boulder, took a firing position. You keep moving. Follow the ridge down. When you hit the road, turn west. Truck stop is 2 miles. I'm not leaving you again. This isn't a discussion. Crowe's voice was flat, command tone, the voice of a man who'd given orders in combat. I can hold them for maybe 10 minutes. That gives you a head start. Take it. And then what? You die here? Maybe, probably. He glanced at her. But you live. And you carry what you know out of this forest. Find a journalist. Find someone who'll listen. Tell them about Crowe, about the operations, about the people who shouldn't have survived. Claire felt tears on her face, didn't remember starting to cry. I'm a medic, she said. I save lives. I don't run. Then you're about to learn a hard lesson. Crowe settled the rifle against his shoulder, eye to the scope. Sometimes the only way to save a life is to sacrifice one, including your own. The dogs were closer now, maybe a quarter mile. Claire could hear men shouting, coordinating, at least 4 voices, maybe more. They're using a sweep pattern, Crowe said, more to himself than to her. Smart, pushing us toward a choke point. He adjusted his position slightly. There, 300 meters. I can see their flashlights. Crowe, I killed my first man when I was 26, he said suddenly. Mogadishu, he was 14 years old. Came at me with a machete. I shot him 3 times. Center mass. He died in maybe 30 seconds. Why are you telling me this? Because you're about to do something similar. Kill someone. Save someone. Make an impossible choice. Crowe's finger rested on the trigger guard. And I want you to know, it doesn't get easier. You just get used to carrying it. I already killed someone, back at your cabin. That was reflex, survival. This is different. He looked at her. This is choosing. Choosing me over yourself. Choosing one life over another. That's the weight I've been carrying for 30 years, and I'm sorry I'm passing it to you. The dogs were maybe 200 meters now, close enough that Claire could hear individual animals, the high yelp of a bloodhound, the deeper bay of a German shepherd. Go, Crowe said. Now. Claire wanted to argue, wanted to fight, wanted to do anything except abandon this old man who'd saved her life twice. But she was a soldier, and soldiers followed orders. She ran. Claire made it 200 yards before she stopped. Not because she was tired, because she heard gunfire. Crowe's rifle. 3 shots, precise. Controller. The sound of a marksman doing his job. Then automatic weapons returning fire. A lot of them. At least 4 different weapons. M4 carbines probably. Standard contractor loadout. She crouched behind a tree, breathing hard. Every instinct screamed at her to keep running. Get to safety. Survive. But medics don't leave casualties behind. The rule was beaten into her head in basic training, reinforced in Syria. You never leave a wounded soldier. Never. Even if it costs your life. Even if the odds are impossible. You go back. Claire turned around. The firefight was easy to find. Muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness like a deadly strobe. Crowe had taken position on a rocky outcrop, giving him elevation and cover. Good tactical choice. But he was alone, and they were many. Claire counted at least 4 shooters, maybe more in reserve. They were advancing by bounds. One team fires, suppressing Crowe, while another team moves. Classic infantry tactics. Professional. Crowe wouldn't last 5 minutes. Claire still had the M16 he'd given her. She checked the chamber. Round ready, safety off. Magazine showed 18 rounds remaining. Not much. Better than nothing. Her hands were shaking. Not from cold, from fear. She'd killed before, back at the cabin, but that had been reactive, survival. This was different. This was choosing to kill. Choosing to take a life to save one. Sometimes the only way to save a life is to sacrifice one. Crowe's words. His burden. Now hers. Claire picked a target. One of the shooters, illuminated by his own muzzle flash. He was crouched behind a tree, maybe 80 meters away. Within her effective range, if she didn't screw it up. Center mass, just like training. Don't aim for the head, aim for the largest target. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked. The shooter dropped. She couldn't tell if she'd hit him or if he'd just taken cover, but the enemy fire shifted, confused. They didn't know where the shot came from. Crowe's voice, shouting over the gunfire. "Donovan, what the hell are you doing?" "Saving your life," she screamed back. "I told you to run." "I don't follow stupid orders." Another shooter. This one was moving, trying to flank Crowe's position. Claire led the target, aimed ahead of his movement, the way she'd been taught. Fired. The man went down. This time she saw the impact, saw him clutch his chest, saw him fall and not get up. Oh God, she'd killed someone. The reality hit her like a punch. She'd just ended a human life. Someone's son, maybe someone's father. Gone, because of her. No time to process, no time to grieve. The battlefield doesn't care about your feelings. Another shooter. Claire fired. Missed. The bullet sparked off a rock. She adjusted, fired again. This time the man spun, dropped his weapon. Hit. Maybe not fatal, but down. Crowe was moving now, using the distraction to reposition. Smart. He flanked left, caught 2 shooters from the side. His suppressed rifle coughed twice. Foot. Both men dropped. Then silence. Sudden and shocking. Claire's ears rang. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd killed at least 1 man, maybe 2. She was a medic. She was supposed to save lives. That was her oath. That was her purpose. And she just violated everything she believed in. Crowe appeared beside her, materializing out of the darkness like a wraith. "You okay?" "No." "Good, that means you're human." He checked her rifle, swapped her nearly empty magazine for a full one from his pack. "We need to move. They'll have heard that. More will come." "I killed someone." "Yeah, you did." Crowe looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something like respect in his eyes. "Welcome to the gray zone. It doesn't get easier. You just get used to carrying it." They started moving again. Downhill. Faster. Claire's mind was static. White noise. She'd crossed a line. There was no going back. "Why did you come back?" Crowe asked after a while. I don't know. Yes, you do. Claire was quiet. They navigated a steep section, using tree roots as handholds. Her shoulder screamed, but she ignored it. Pain was temporary. This conversation was important. Because you were right, she finally said. About everything. About saving people who shouldn't be saved. About the choices we make. About the weight. And? And I didn't want you to carry it alone. Crowe didn't respond immediately. They walked in silence, the only sound their boots on stone and the distant echo of sirens. Somewhere, someone had called the police. Somewhere, the net was tightening. After maybe 5 minutes, Crowe spoke. I had a partner once, another surgeon, guy named Marcus Webb. We worked together in Central America, Somalia, Kosovo, every shit show from 87 to 93. What happened to him? He couldn't carry the weight, started drinking, then pills, then worse. Crowe's voice was flat, factual. He ate his gun on Christmas Eve, 1998, left a note, 3 words, I'm so tired. Claire felt her throat tighten. I'm sorry. Don't be. He made his choice, same as I made mine, same as you're making now. Crowe stopped, turned to face her. But here's the thing, you came back. Webb didn't. He ran, kept running until he couldn't run anymore. You stood your ground. I didn't stand. I fired from cover. Same thing. Crowe almost smiled. You chose to fight. That's what matters. They continued walking. Claire's mind churned. She'd killed someone. She'd violated her oath. She'd become exactly what she swore she'd never be. But she'd saved Crowe. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth it. We're not going to make it out of this, she said quietly. Probably not. So what's the plan? Crowe stopped, pulled out the GPS device from earlier, the one that looked like military hardware. He pressed a button, held it for 3 seconds. This time, something happened. A green light blinked on, then changed to red. Remember I said I had insurance? Yeah. I sent a package to 7 different journalists, encrypted, password protected. If I don't enter a code every 30 days, it auto-sends. He held up the device. I just activated the emergency protocol. 72 hours from now, everything I know goes public. Operations, names, dates, body counts, every classified atrocity from 1987 to 1993. Claire stared at him. You just declared war on the CIA. I declared war 20 years ago. I just finally fired the first shot. Crowe pocketed the device. Now we have a new mission. Stay alive for 72 hours, long enough for the truth to get out. And then? Then either we're heroes or we're dead. Crowe started walking again. Could go either way. You're insane. No, I'm tired. Crowe's voice was soft, almost sad. I'm 68 years old. I've lived in the woods like an animal for 20 years. I've watched 47 people I saved go on to kill thousands. I'm tired, Claire, so tired. Then why fight? Because I'm not tired enough to quit. He glanced back at her. Not yet. Ovando looked like every other dying Montana town. One main street, buildings that had seen better decades, and enough empty storefronts to tell the story of rural America's slow collapse. Population signs said 300. Claire suspected half of those were seasonal. They approached from the north, staying off the main road, moving through backyards and empty lots. Dogs barked as they passed, not attack dogs, just bored pets announcing strangers. Crowe moved like he'd done this route before. Probably had. The outfitter's shop was at the end of Main Street, a log building with a covered porch, antler decorations, and a hand-painted sign, Montana Backcountry Adventures, Bob Mitchell, proprietor. A smaller sign below advertised hunting guides, fishing trips, wilderness survival training. Every window was dark. Crowe knocked, specific pattern, 3 short, 2 long, 1 short. Nothing. He knocked again, same pattern. Some kind of code, Claire realized, a signal. Still, nothing. Claire felt her heart sink. Maybe he's not. A light came on inside. Not the main lights. A flashlight beam moving toward the door. Then a voice, old and suspicious. "Who's there?" "It's Elias." Silence. Long enough that Claire thought the door wouldn't open. She tensed, ready to run if this went bad. Then bolts slid. 3 of them. The door cracked open, revealing a shotgun barrel first, then a face. The man who stood there was maybe 70, built like a fire hydrant, short, wide, solid muscle gone soft with age, but still capable. White beard, weathered face, eyes that had seen combat. Vietnam, Claire guessed, maybe earlier. He looked at Crowe, then at Claire, then back at Crowe. "Jesus Christ," he said, "they're hunting you." "Yeah, and you brought them to my door." "I need a truck, Bob." "You need to leave, right now." But Bob stepped aside, let them in anyway. The shop smelled like leather and gun oil and something Claire couldn't place. Maybe tobacco, maybe just the accumulated scent of 70 years of Montana wilderness. Mounted animals stared from the walls. Elk, bighorn sheep. A massive grizzly frozen mid-roar. Trophy heads from clients probably. The kind of decor that told tourists this guy knew the backcountry. Bob locked the door, not just the knob, but 2 deadbolts and a crossbar. Then he killed the flashlight and moved to a window, peered through the curtains. "How bad?" he asked. "Agency contractors, at least a dozen, maybe more." Crowe sat down in a chair, suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. "They've got dogs, drones, and unlimited budget." "What did you do?" "Activated the insurance." Bob's face went pale. Actually pale. Claire saw the color drain even in the darkness. "You're serious?" "You actually did it." "Had to. They weren't going to stop. So now they're definitely not going to stop." Bob walked to a gun safe in the corner, worked the combination. "Jesus, Elias, you couldn't just stay hidden?" "They found me anyway. Some writers doing an expose mentioned my name. CIA couldn't take the risk. So they sent a kill team. More or less." Bob opened the safe. Inside were rifles. A lot of rifles. He pulled out an old Remington 700, hunting rifle, but with a good scope. Match-grade barrel. The kind of weapon that could reach out and touch someone at 800 meters. "How long do we have?" Bob asked, checking the rifle's action. "They're maybe 20 minutes behind us. Less if they're smart." "They're agency. They're smart." Bob grabbed a set of keys from a hook by the door. "Truck's out back. F250, full tank. Registration's clean. Won't trace to me for at least a few days." "Bob." "Shut up." Bob cut him off, his voice hard. "You saved my son's life in Desert Storm. Tommy took shrapnel to the femoral. Doc said he'd bleed out before the medevac arrived. You clamped it. Kept him breathing. He's got 3 kids now. Works for the Forest Service. Good man. That's because of you." That was 25 years ago. "I don't forget debts." Bob tossed Crowe the keys. "But after this, we're even. You hear me? Even." "Understood." They moved to the back door. Bob opened it, checked outside with practiced caution, first through the window, then cracking the door, then a full sweep with the rifle. Clear. "There's a fire road about a quarter-mile west," Bob said, keeping his voice low. "Follows Bear Creek up into the mountains. Used to be a logging road. Forest Service stopped maintaining it 20 years ago. You can lose them in the high country if you know what you're doing." "I know what I'm doing." "Yeah, I remember." Bob looked at Claire for the first time. Really looked. "Who's the girl?" "Army medic." "Wrong place, wrong time." "Story of my life," Claire muttered. Bob almost smiled. "What's your name, soldier?" "Donovan." "Claire Donovan. Specialist, U.S. Army Reserve." "You combat?" "Syria, 2023. CMB?" "Yeah," Bob nodded, satisfied. Combat medical badge meant she'd been under fire. Meant she'd earned her place. Listen to Elias. He's paranoid and he's crazy, but he'll keep you alive. I'm getting that impression. One more thing. Bob reached into the safe, pulled out a satellite phone. Old model, brick-sized, but functional. This is a burner. 15 minutes of talk time. Use it smart. Numbers taped to the back. Crowe took the phone. Bob, get moving. I'll slow them down if they come asking. Bob walked them to the back door, opened it. But Elias, don't come back. Ever. We're even now. Next time they come looking, I won't lie for you. Fair enough. They stepped outside. The night air was cold, sharp with the smell of pine and the promise of rain. The truck was exactly where Bob said. A dark blue F-250, maybe 10 years old but well-maintained. Work truck, not a show truck. Crowe climbed into the driver's seat. Claire took passenger. The engine started with a rumble. Loud, way too loud for stealth, but Crowe didn't seem concerned. Behind them, Bob's shop went dark again. Will he be okay? Claire asked as they pulled away, headlights off, navigating by moonlight. Probably. He's a civilian. They won't hurt him unless he becomes a problem. Crowe turned onto a narrow trail that barely qualified as a road. And Bob's smart enough not to be a problem. And if he does become a problem? Crowe didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew how this worked. The fire road was brutal. Steep switchbacks, loose gravel, sections washed out by decades of weather. Crowe navigated it like he'd driven it 1,000 times. Maybe he had. How many escape routes do you have? Claire asked. 12. Different routes depending on which direction the threat comes from. Crowe downshifted for a particularly steep section. This one's the mountain route. Takes us up to 7,000 feet. From there we can go north into Glacier, east to Great Falls, or south to Missoula. You really have been planning this for 20 years. Paranoia's just pattern recognition for the future. Yeah, you said that. They climbed in silence. The truck's engine strained, low gear grinding up grades that probably shouldn't be attempted at night. But Crowe kept pushing, kept climbing. After 30 minutes, they crested a ridge. Below, the valley spread out like a map. Dark forest, Silver Creek reflecting moonlight, and far in the distance, the lights of a larger town. Missoula, probably. Crowe stopped the truck, killed the engine. The silence was immediate and total. What? Claire asked. Listen. She listened. Heard wind in the pines. Heard the truck engine ticking as it cooled. Heard her own heartbeat. I don't hear anything. Exactly. Crowe got out, walked to the edge of the ridge. Claire followed. The forest was silent. Not normal silent, wrong silent. No wind rustle, no animal sounds, no insects, like the forest was holding its breath. They're here, Crowe said quietly. How do you know? Because the forest knows. Listen, no birds, no coyotes, nothing. He turned back to the truck. It's a trap. They got ahead of us somehow. How? Doesn't matter. What matters is the spotlight hit them before Crowe could finish. Blinding white light from above. A helicopter hovering maybe 200 feet up. Not the civilian bird from before. This was military. A Black Hawk, maybe the same model Claire had fallen out of. Full circle, she thought. Started in a Black Hawk, might end in one too. Don't move! A voice over a loudspeaker, electronically amplified and emotionless. This is a federal operation. Put your hands on your heads and kneel on the ground. Crowe didn't move. Neither did Claire. They stood frozen in the spotlight, casting shadows that stretched behind them like accusations. Dr. Elias Crowe, you are wanted for questioning regarding national security violations. Surrender now and you will not be harmed. They're lying, Crowe said quietly, his lips barely moving. I know. Men emerged from the tree line, 4 of them visible, probably more in reserve, all armed with carbines, all moving with the fluid coordination of a trained team. The helicopter's loudspeaker crackled again. Last chance, surrender or we will use force." Crowe looked at Claire, really looked, and she saw everything in his eyes: regret, determination, resignation, the look of a man who'd made his choice. "I'm sorry I got you into this," he said. "Don't apologize, just tell me what to do. Survive, whatever it takes. Survive and tell the story." He reached into his jacket, slowly, carefully, not wanting to get shot yet, and pulled out a USB drive. Black plastic, tiny, inconsequential looking. He pressed it into her hand. "This is a copy of everything. All the files, all the names, operations from 1987 to 1993. If I don't make it, you'll make it." "If I don't," Crowe insisted, closing her fingers around the drive, "give this to someone who'll use it. A journalist, a congressman, someone with the courage to burn it all down." Claire closed her fist around the drive. It felt impossibly small. How could something so tiny contain so much weight? "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Something stupid." Crowe turned to face the spotlight. "Something I should have done 20 years ago." He raised his hands, not in surrender, in defiance. "My name is Captain Elias Crowe," he shouted, his voice carrying across the ridge. "Former surgeon, 5th Special Forces Group, service number 458-72-9841. I served my country for 15 years. The helicopter spotlight wavered slightly, confused. This wasn't the script. "I saved lives in operations you'll never read about," Crowe continued. "Operations that don't exist in any official record. And I'm here to tell you that sometimes," his voice cracked, "sometimes saving a life is the worst thing you can do." "Sir, you need to calm down." "I will not calm down." Crowe pulled out a folder from his jacket, documents, official-looking papers with classified stamps. He held them up to the spotlight. "Hassan Keita, Baidoa massacre. I saved him, kept him alive when he should have bled out. 300 people died because I did my job. Sir, this is your final warning. Subject X, Central America, 1989. I saved him with a field thoracotomy. 16 families massacred 6 months later." Crowe was crying now, tears streaming down his face, but his voice never wavered. "I have names, dates, operations, every person I saved who went on to kill, every decision I made that led to more death." The men in the trees were looking at each other now, uncertain. This wasn't standard operating procedure. "And in 72 hours, Crowe shouted, "the whole world will know. Every file, every name, every classified atrocity from the past 30 years. It's already in motion. You can't stop it." "Dr. Crowe, please." "You want me quiet?" Crowe screamed. "You want me disappeared? Then you'll have to kill me. Right here, right now, in front of witnesses." He pointed at Claire. "In front of her, an active-duty Army medic, a decorated combat veteran, someone people will believe when she tells them what happened here." The helicopter swung lower, aggressive. The downdraft kicked up dust and pine needles. "Stand down, drop any weapons and get on the ground." Crowe didn't drop anything. He looked at Claire one last time. His eyes said everything his mouth couldn't. "I'm sorry. Thank you. Run." "My name is Elias Crowe," he screamed into the spotlight, "and I refuse to be forgotten." He pulled out a pistol, not pointed at anyone, just held it. A statement, a line drawn. "Stand down! Drop the weapon!" Crowe didn't drop it. Instead, he turned and fired, not at the men, not at the helicopter, into the air. A single shot, a declaration. The forest exploded with gunfire. Gunfire. Everywhere. The men in the trees returned fire immediately. Full auto, panic shooting, discipline breaking down. The helicopter swung sideways, spotlight swinging wild, the pilot trying to get clear. Claire ran. Didn't think. Didn't plan. just ran. Behind her, Crowe kept firing, not at people, at the sky, at the ground, at nothing, drawing fire, making himself the target. Every muzzle flash gave away his position. He knew that, didn't care. She reached the truck, threw herself inside, fumbled with the keys. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped them. Found them, started the engine. The rear window exploded in a shower of safety glass. Claire ducked instinctively, kept her foot on the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, tires spinning on loose gravel. Another burst of gunfire. The passenger mirror disintegrated. She cranked the wheel hard, fishtailing around a boulder, nearly going over the edge of the ridge. In the rearview mirror, illuminated by the chaos of muzzle flashes and the helicopter spotlight, she saw Crowe, still standing, still shooting, a one-man army making his last stand, until he wasn't. She saw the impacts, saw his body jerk, once, twice, 3 times, saw him drop to one knee. The spotlight found him immediately. Men rushed forward, weapons up, moving with tactical precision now that the target was down. Claire wanted to go back. Every fiber of her being, her training, her oath, her identity as a medic, screamed at her to turn around, to save him. That's what medics did. That's who she was. But Crowe's voice echoed in her head, louder than the gunfire. Survive, whatever it takes. She drove. The fire road got worse, narrower, steeper. Sections washed out completely, forcing her to navigate by instinct and luck. But she kept pushing, kept climbing, kept running. The USB drive in her pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. After 10 minutes, or maybe 30, time had stopped making sense. She stopped, killed the engine, sat in the darkness, breathing hard, listening. No helicopters, no gunfire, no pursuit, just silence and the sound of her own ragged breathing. She pulled out the USB drive, looked at it. This tiny piece of plastic and metal held the truth, held names, held proof, held Crowe's entire life, his sins, his redemption, his final act of defiance. Claire started the truck again, not going back, going forward. She had 72 hours to stay alive, to get this drive to someone who mattered, someone with the courage to use it. She could do that. She was a soldier. She was a medic. She was a survivor, and she was carrying something worth surviving for. Behind her, in the valley, lights converged, sirens, shouting, the machinery of power grinding into motion, trying to contain the damage, trying to silence the truth. But Claire was already gone, and with her she carried everything they wanted to bury. The road ahead was dark and uncertain, but she drove anyway, because that's what survivors did. They kept moving forward. They drove for 30 minutes, climbing into the mountains. The fire road was barely a road, more like a suggestion carved into the hillside. Crowe navigated switchbacks without hesitation, clearly familiar with the terrain. "How many times have you planned this escape route?" Claire asked. "This one? 6. I've got 12 different routes depending on which direction the threat comes from." Crowe downshifted for a steep section. "Paranoia's just pattern recognition for the future." "You said that before." "It's still true." They crested a ridge. Below, the valley spread out like a map. Dark forest, Silver Creek, and far in the distance the lights of a larger town. Missoula, maybe. Crowe stopped the truck, killed the engine, listened. "What?" Claire asked. "Nothing. That's the problem." He got out, walked to the edge of the ridge. Claire followed. The forest was silent. No wind, no animals, no insects. "They're here," Crowe said quietly. "How do you know?" "Because the forest knows. Listen. No birds, no coyotes, nothing." He turned back to the truck. "It's a trap. They got ahead of us somehow." "How?" "Doesn't matter. What matters is..." The spotlight hit them before Crowe could finish. Blinding white light from above. A helicopter hovering maybe 200 feet up. "Don't move!" A voice over a loudspeaker. "This is a federal operation. Put your hands on your heads." Crowe didn't move. Neither did Claire. They stood frozen in the spotlight, shadows stretching behind them like accusations. "Dr. Elias Crowe, you are wanted for questioning regarding national security violations. Surrender now and you will not be harmed." "They're lying," Crowe said quietly. "I know." Men emerged from the tree line, 4 of them, maybe more behind, all armed, all professional. "Last chance," the helicopter voice called. "Surrender or we will use force." Crowe looked at Claire. "I'm sorry I got you into this. Don't apologize, just tell me what to do. Survive. Whatever it takes, survive and tell the story." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a USB drive, pressed it into her hand. "This is a copy of everything, all the files, all the names. If I don't make it, you'll make it." "If I don't," Crowe insisted, "give this to someone who'll use it. A journalist, a congressman, someone." Claire closed her fist around the drive. "What are you going to do?" "Something stupid." Crowe turned to face the spotlight. "Something I should have done 20 years ago." He raised his hands, not in surrender, in defiance. "My name is Captain Elias Crowe," he shouted. "Former surgeon, 5th Special Forces Group. I served my country for 15 years. I saved lives in operations you'll never read about. And I'm here to tell you that sometimes," his voice cracked, "sometimes saving a life is the worst thing you can do." The helicopter spotlight wavered. "Hassan Keita, Baidoa massacre. I saved him. I kept him alive. 300 people died because I did my job." Crowe was crying now, tears streaming down his face. "Subject X, Central America. I saved him. 16 families massacred because I followed orders." "Sir, you need to calm down." "I will not calm down." Crowe pulled out a folder from his jacket. Documents, official looking. He held them up to the spotlight. "I have names, dates, operations. Every person I saved who went on to kill. Every decision I made that led to more death. And in 72 hours, the whole world will know." Claire watched the men in the trees. They were confused now, orders unclear. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. "You want me quiet?" Crowe shouted. "You want me disappeared? Then you'll have to kill me, right here, right now, in front of witnesses, in front of her," he pointed at Claire. "An active duty Army medic, a decorated veteran, someone people will believe." "Dr. Crowe, please." "My name is Elias Crowe," he screamed, "and I refuse to be forgotten." He pulled out a gun, not pointed at anyone, just held it. A threat, a promise. "Stand down," the helicopter ordered. "Drop the weapon." Crowe didn't drop it. He looked at Claire one last time. "Run," he said. Then he turned and fired into the air. The forest exploded. Gunfire, everywhere. The men in the trees returned fire, full auto, panic shooting. The helicopter swung sideways, spotlight swinging wild. Claire ran. Didn't think, didn't plan, just ran. Behind her, Crowe kept firing. Not at people, at the sky, at the ground, at nothing. Drawing fire, making himself the target. She reached the truck, threw herself inside, started the engine. The truck lurched forward, tires spinning on loose gravel. The rear window exploded. Claire ducked, kept the accelerator floored. The truck fishtailed around a corner, nearly went over the edge, straightened out. In the rearview mirror, she saw Crowe, still standing, still shooting, until he wasn't. He went down hard. The spotlight found him immediately. Men rushed forward. Claire wanted to go back, wanted to save him. That's what medics did. That's who she was. But Crowe's voice echoed in her head. Survive, whatever it takes. She drove. The fire road got worse, narrower, steeper. But Claire kept pushing, kept climbing, kept running. The USB drive burned in her pocket like a live coal. After 10 minutes, she stopped, killed the engine, listened. No helicopters, no gunfire, just silence and her own ragged breathing. She pulled out the USB drive, looked at it. This tiny piece of plastic and metal held the truth, held names, held proof, held Crowe's entire life. Claire started the truck again, not going back, going forward. 72 hours. She had 72 hours to stay alive, to get this drive to someone who mattered. She could do that. She was a soldier. She was a medic. She was a survivor. Behind her, in the valley, lights converged. Sirens, shouting, the machinery of power grinding into motion. But Claire was already gone. Claire drove until the fire road turned into pavement. Then she drove some more. East, away from the mountains, toward the flat darkness of the Montana plains. The truck's fuel gauge showed half a tank, enough to get to Great Falls maybe, or Helena. Somewhere with people, somewhere she could disappear. The USB drive sat on the passenger seat. She tried to put it in her pocket but couldn't stop touching it, checking it, making sure it was real. Dawn came slowly, gray light bleeding across the horizon, turning the landscape from black to charcoal to the washed-out brown of winter grassland. Claire's hands ached from gripping the steering wheel. Her shoulder throbbed, her head pounded. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. The truck's radio crackled to life. She hadn't even realized it was on. News. Local station. The anchor's voice was professionally concerned. Multiple fatalities in what authorities are calling a training accident near Ovando. Army officials confirmed that a National Guard helicopter crashed yesterday morning, killing 2 service members. Names are being withheld pending family notification. Claire's throat tightened. Hayes, Ramirez, dead. Because someone had fed them bad intel. Because someone wanted her in that helicopter when it went down. The radio continued. Separately, Montana State Police are investigating reports of gunfire in the same area last night. Sheriff's deputies responding to the scene found evidence of a firefight, but no casualties. The FBI has taken over the investigation. Residents are asked to report any suspicious activity. No casualties. Claire almost laughed. She'd seen Crowe go down, seen the impacts, seen him fall. They'd sanitized the scene, erased him, just like he'd been erased 20 years ago. She turned off the radio. A sign appeared. Great Falls, 47 miles. Big enough to hide in, small enough not to attract too much attention. She could find a motel, sleep, figure out her next move. But first, she needed to check the drive. The Great Falls Public Library opened at 9. Claire waited in the parking lot, watching people come and go. Mothers with children, elderly men with newspapers, a teenager with headphones and attitude. Normal people, living normal lives, none of them carrying secrets that could destroy careers. She went inside at 9:15, found a computer terminal in the back, away from the main desk. The librarian, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes, smiled at her. Need help finding anything, dear? Just need to check email, thanks. The computer was old, Windows 7 probably, but it had a USB port. Claire plugged in the drive, her hands shaking. A password prompt appeared. Shit. Of course it was encrypted. Claire stared at the screen. Crowe had given her the drive but not the password. Why? Had he assumed she'd figure it out? Or had he planned to tell her and never got the chance? She tried the obvious ones. Crowe, Elias, Somalia, all failed. Think, what would Crowe use? Something from his past, something meaningful. She tried Kata, failed. Baidoa, failed. Subject X, failed. Claire leaned back, frustration building. She had 72 hours. No, less now. Maybe 68. And she couldn't even open the damn file. Her eyes fell on her own reflection in the screen. A combat medic. Someone who saved lives. She tried Hippocratic. The drive unlocked. The files were organized by year, 1987 to 1993. Each folder contained medical records, after-action reports, photographs, and a personal log written by Crowe. Claire opened the first file. Central America, 1987. Subject X, real name redacted, but the details were there. Gunshot wound to the chest, emergency thoracotomy, successful save. Then a second document, dated 6 months later. Massacre at San Marcos Village. 16 families. Death toll, 47. Perpetrator, Subject X. Crowe's personal log entry. I did my job. I saved a life. But I wonder if I had been slower, less skilled, less committed, would those 47 people still be alive? Is this what do no harm means? Claire's stomach turned. She opened another file. Somalia, 1993. Hassan Keita. The case Crowe had told her about. The photos were there, before and after. Keita on the operating table, Crowe's hands inside his chest. Then Keita 6 months later, standing over bodies in Baidoa, smiling for a propaganda photograph. Crowe's log. I've killed more people by saving them than most soldiers kill in combat. This is my true body count, not 0, 300, and counting. File after file, operation after operation. Each one the same pattern. Crowe saves someone. That someone goes on to kill others. Crowe documents it, carries it, drowns in it. The final folder was dated 1993, titled simply, Why I Ran. Claire opened it. It was a letter, not a log entry. A letter addressed to whoever finds this. She read, My name is Captain Elias Crowe, M.D., service number 458-729-841. I am writing this because I can no longer participate in a system that weaponizes medicine. For 6 years, I have served as a field surgeon for classified operations. I have saved 47 individuals who went on to commit atrocities. I have been ordered to prioritize intelligence value over medical ethics. I have been told that my job is to keep people breathing, regardless of what they breathe for. I reported these concerns through proper channels. My report was buried. I was scheduled for psychiatric evaluation, not because I was mentally unstable, but because I was asking questions. So I'm leaving, taking copies of everything. If you're reading this, either I'm dead or I've decided the truth matters more than my safety. The names are in these files. The operations are documented. The evidence is undeniable. Use it, expose it. Make sure the people who ordered these saves, who weaponize medical ethics, face consequences. I took an oath. First, do no harm. I've broken that oath 47 times. I can't break it again. If you're a journalist, publish this. If you're a congressman, investigate it. If you're a citizen, demand accountability. And if you're a doctor, learn from my mistakes. Sometimes saving a life causes more harm than letting them die. That's the truth they don't teach in medical school. Captain Elias Crowe. November 15th, 1993. Claire stared at the screen, tears blurring her vision. 32 years. Crowe had been carrying this for 32 years. She ejected the drive, pocketed it. Around her, the library continued its quiet routine. People reading, studying, living lives unburdened by impossible choices. She needed to find a journalist, someone credible, someone brave enough to publish this. But first, she needed to survive. Claire left the library through the back exit. A survival instinct she hadn't even known she had. Don't use the same door twice. Don't create patterns. The parking lot was empty except for her truck and a dark sedan. Black, tinted windows, government plates. Shit. She walked calmly toward her truck, keys in hand, not running. Running meant guilt. Running meant prey. The sedan's door opened. A man stepped out, 40s, fit, wearing khakis and a polo shirt. The kind of outfit that screamed, "Federal agent trying to look casual." He smiled, friendly, disarming. "Miss Donovan? Claire Donovan? Who's asking?" "Special Agent Marcus Webb, FBI." He showed credentials. They looked real. Probably were. "I need to ask you a few questions about the incident near Ovando." Claire's hand tightened on her keys. "I already gave a statement to the MPS." "I know, I've read it. Very thorough." Webb's smile didn't reach his eyes. "But there are some inconsistencies, things that don't quite add up. I was hoping you could clarify." "Like what?" "Like how you survived a helicopter crash that killed your entire crew. Like where you've been for the past 36 hours. Like why you're in Great Falls instead of at Fort Harrison giving a debrief." Webb took a step closer. "You're not in trouble, Ms. Donovan. We just want to understand what happened. I got lucky. I've been in shock. I needed time to process." "Understandable." Another step. "But here's the thing. We have witnesses who saw you with an elderly man. White male, late 60s, gray beard. Ring any bells?" Claire's heart hammered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Because we have footage from a gas station in Ovando. Shows you in the passenger seat of a blue F-250. Shows an older man driving. Timestamp puts you there around 11 p.m. last night." Webb's smile vanished. "So let me ask again, where is Dr. Crowe?" Claire said nothing. "He's a dangerous man, Miss Donovan, a fugitive, wanted for theft of classified materials, violation of national security protocols, and conspiracy to commit espionage." Webb's voice hardened. "If you're helping him, you're committing a federal crime. But if you cooperate, if you tell us where he is, what he gave you, we can make this go away. No charges, no court-martial. You go back to your unit, we forget this ever happened. I don't know where he is, but you were with him." "I was. He's dead now." Claire met Webb's eyes. "Your people killed him. Last night, on that ridge." Webb's expression didn't change. "I don't know what you think you saw. I saw him get shot multiple times, center mass. He went down." Claire's voice was flat. "So if you're looking for him, check the morgue, or the incinerator, wherever you put inconvenient bodies." For a moment, Webb said nothing. Then, "If Dr. Crowe is deceased, then you have nothing to protect, which means you can tell me what he gave you." "He didn't give me anything." "Specialist Donovan, I'm trying to help you." "No, you're not." Claire's voice turned to steel. "You're trying to clean up a mess, trying to make sure whatever Crowe knew stays buried. But I'm a medic, not a spy. I don't have anything you want." Webb studied her, calculating. Then he reached into his jacket, slowly, deliberately, pulled out a business card. "My number. When you're ready to talk, and you will be ready, eventually, call me. The offer expires in 48 hours. After that, you're on your own." He handed her the card. "And Miss Donovan, people who cross the agency don't tend to live long, healthy lives. Just something to consider." He walked back to his sedan, got in, drove away. Claire stood in the parking lot, shaking. Not from fear, from rage. They'd killed Crowe, erased him, and now they wanted to erase her too. Not happening. Claire drove to Helena, bigger city, better resources. She found an internet cafe, paid cash, opened an encrypted browser. She needed a journalist, someone with credibility, someone who couldn't be intimidated or bought. She searched, investigative journalist CIA Black Ops. The first result was a name she recognized, David Rosen, Pulitzer Prize winner, author of 3 books exposing government misconduct, currently working for The Intercept. She found his contact form, started typing. "Mr. Rosen, my name is Claire Donovan. I'm a U.S. Army medic. I have information about classified military operations from 1987 to 1993. Operations that violated medical ethics and international law. I have documentation, medical records, after-action reports, photographs, a personal testimony from a military surgeon who participated in these operations. People died because of what happened. Thousands of people. And the officials who ordered it have never faced consequences. I need your help bringing this to light. I'll contact you again in 24 hours with instructions for a secure meeting. CD. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she deleted her browsing history, paid for an extra hour she wouldn't use, and left through the back door. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We know you have the files. Return them, and this ends. Refuse, and you become a traitor. Your choice. 36 hours. Claire deleted the text, turned off her phone, pulled the battery. They were tracking her. Of course they were. They had resources she couldn't even imagine. But she had something they didn't. Nothing left to lose. Claire found a motel on the outskirts of Helena. Cash only, no questions. The kind of place that catered to people who needed to be invisible. She paid for 3 nights, locked herself in room 14, and finally collapsed on the bed. She meant to stay awake, meant to plan her next move, but exhaustion hit like a hammer. She was asleep in seconds. She woke to knocking. Claire jolted upright, hand reaching for a weapon she didn't have. The clock showed 6 p.m. She'd slept for 6 hours. More knocking. Ms. Donovan, it's Bob Mitchell. From Ovando, I need to talk to you. Claire froze. How had he found her? I'm alone, Bob called through the door. No agency, no cops, just me. Elias told me if anything happened, I should find you. Make sure you were okay. Claire moved to the door, peered through the peephole. Bob stood there alone, hands visible, no weapon drawn. He looked tired, old. She opened the door, keeping the chain on. How did you find me? Elias put a tracker in the truck. Old school. Magnetic GPS unit under the rear axle. I've been following you since Great Falls. Bob held up his hands. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. Why? Because Elias saved my son. Because I owe him. Because, Bob's voice cracked, because I heard what happened on the ridge, and I know they're coming for you next. Claire studied him. Every instinct said, don't trust anyone. But Crowe had trusted Bob, and Crowe's instincts had kept him alive for 20 years. She opened the door. Bob stepped inside, locked it behind him. Show me what he gave you. Claire hesitated, then pulled out the USB drive. Bob nodded. The insurance files. Jesus, he actually did it. He sat down in the room's single chair. Do you understand what you're carrying? Proof of war crimes, medical ethics violations, classified operations. It's more than that. It's 30 years of carefully constructed lies. If those files go public, heads roll, careers end, people go to prison. Bob looked at her. The agency will do anything to stop that. Anything. I know. Do you? Because anything includes killing you, framing you, destroying everything you care about. They'll go after your family, your friends, your reputation. They'll turn you into a traitor before they let those files see daylight. So what do? You release them, fast, before they can stop you. Bob pulled out a laptop from his bag. I know a guy, journalist, worked with Elias back in the day. He's one of the good ones, can't be bought, can't be scared. David Rosen? Bob blinked. You already contacted him? This afternoon. Smart. Bob opened the laptop. But email isn't secure. They'll intercept it. We need to get the files directly to him. In person. Tonight. Where is he? Seattle. 12-hour drive. Bob checked his watch. If we leave now, we can make it by dawn. Hand off the files. Get them published before the agency even knows they've lost. Claire looked at the USB drive. At Bob. At the door. She'd been running for 2 days. Running and hiding and barely surviving. Maybe it was time to stop running. Let's go, she said. They took back roads. Bob drove using paper maps instead of GPS. They can track electronic signals, can't track folded paper. Claire sat in the passenger seat, the USB drive in her pocket, watching Montana slide past in the darkness. Mountains gave way to foothills. Foothills gave way to plains. The landscape flattened, opened up. "Tell me about Crowe," Bob said after an hour of silence. "What was he like at the end?" Claire thought about it. Tired, but not broken, like he'd made peace with something. "That sounds like Elias." Bob smiled sadly. "When I met him in '91, he was different, angry, righteous, convinced he could change the system from inside. Then Somalia happened, broke something in him." "What happened to your son, the one Crowe saved?" "Tommy, he's good, lives in Bozeman, Forest Service, got 3 kids, like I said." Bob's voice softened. "He doesn't know about any of this, doesn't know what Elias did, what it cost. Are you going to tell him?" "Maybe, someday, when he's old enough to understand that sometimes good men do terrible things, and sometimes terrible things happen because good men follow orders." They crossed into Idaho around midnight, stopped for gas at a truck stop outside Coeur d'Alene. Claire went inside to pay while Bob filled the tank. The TV above the register was playing news. CNN. Breaking story. "Developing story out of Montana tonight. Federal authorities have issued an arrest warrant for Army Specialist Claire Donovan, wanted for questioning in connection with the theft of classified materials. Donovan is considered armed and dangerous. If you have any information..." Claire's photo appeared on screen. Her Army ID photo. Hair pulled back, uniform crisp, looking like a soldier, not a fugitive. The clerk glanced at the TV, then at Claire. His eyes widened. "That'll be $40, he said quietly. Claire handed him cash. "Keep the change." She walked out slowly, not running. Running meant guilt. Bob was waiting by the truck, engine running. "We need to move, now." They were back on the highway in 30 seconds. The roadblock appeared 20 miles outside Spokane. State police, 3 cruisers, spike strips deployed. "Shit," Bob muttered, slowing down. "Can we turn around?" "Too late, they've seen us." Bob pulled to a stop, hands visible on the wheel. "Let me do the talking." A trooper approached, flashlight in hand. Young, maybe 30. "License and registration." Bob handed them over. "Problem, officer?" "We're looking for someone. Army medic. Might be traveling through the area." The trooper shined his light into the truck, illuminating Claire's face. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." "She's my daughter," Bob said quickly. "We're just..." "Step out, now." Claire got out, hands raised. 2 more troopers moved in, weapons drawn but not aimed. Professional. Cautious. "Are you Claire Donovan?" the first trooper asked. Before Claire could answer, Bob spoke. "Officers, there's been a mistake. This isn't..." The gunshot cut him off. Not from the police, from the tree line. A single shot, suppressed, professional. The first trooper dropped, a hole in his chest. Chaos. The other troopers spun, trying to find the shooter. More shots. Both went down. Claire dove behind the truck. Bob was already moving, pulling a pistol from his waistband. Where the hell had he been hiding that? "Move!" he shouted. They ran into the forest, leaving the truck, leaving the dead troopers, running blind into the darkness. Behind them, men emerged from the trees. Not police, contractors. The same team from the ridge. The hunt was back on. They ran for 20 minutes before Bob collapsed. Not from exhaustion, from the bullet Claire hadn't seen him take. "Bob!" She caught him, lowered him to the ground. Blood soaked his shirt, dark and spreading. Abdominal wound. Maybe liver. Maybe worse. "Doesn't matter," Bob gasped. "Keep going." "I'm a medic, let me..." "No time." He pressed something into her hand. His laptop. "Rosen's contact info is in the bookmarks. Send him the files. All of them. Tonight." "I'm not leaving you." Yes, you are. Bob smiled, blood on his teeth. Tommy's got kids. 3 beautiful kids. If I die here, tell them Grandpa died doing something that mattered. Tell them, he coughed, wet and rattling. Tell them the truth. All of it. Claire heard voices, boots on leaves, getting closer. Go, Bob whispered. She went. The forest was thick, disorienting. Claire ran on instinct, on training, on the desperate need to survive. The laptop banged against her ribs. The USB drive burned in her pocket. She reached a creek, crossed it, kept running. Behind her, gunfire. A single shot, then silence. Bob was gone. Claire kept running until she couldn't run anymore, until her legs gave out and she collapsed against a tree, gasping, crying, bleeding from a dozen cuts she didn't remember getting. She pulled out the laptop, battery at 40%. Enough. She found an unsecured Wi-Fi signal, someone's house, maybe, or a business. Connected. Opened encrypted email. Attached every file from the USB drive. Every document, every photo, every piece of evidence Crowe had spent 30 years collecting. Typed a message. Mr. Rosen, this is everything. Publish it. Tonight. Before they kill me too. People died for this truth. Don't let their deaths be meaningless. Claire Donovan. She hit send. The files uploaded. 2.3 gigabytes. Taking forever. The progress bar crawled. 50%, 60%, 70%. Voices. Close. Maybe 50 yards. 80%, 90%. Claire saw flashlight beams through the trees. 95%, 98%. There! 100%. Sent. Claire closed the laptop, wiped her prints, threw it into the creek. Then she stood up, hands raised, and walked toward the lights. A man emerged from the darkness. Not a contractor, not military. Agent Webb. Miss Donovan, he said quietly, you just made a terrible mistake. No, Claire said. I just made sure the truth survives, even if I don't. Webb raised his weapon. I'm sorry it had to end this way. I'm not. The gunshot echoed through the forest. The Seattle Times front page. Classified medical operations exposed. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist reveals decades of ethics violations. By David Rosen. 6 months ago, I received an email from an Army medic named Claire Donovan. She was on the run, being hunted by federal agents, carrying proof of crimes that had been buried for 3 decades. That email contained 2.3 gigabytes of classified documents, medical records, after-action reports, personal testimonies from Dr. Elias Crowe, a military surgeon who participated in operations designed to keep high-value targets alive, regardless of their crimes. The evidence was undeniable. 47 individuals saved, thousands killed as a result, all sanctioned by officials at the highest levels of government. Today, those officials are facing justice. 3 former CIA directors have been indicted. 7 senior military officers have resigned. Congressional hearings are scheduled for next month. But this story isn't about them. It's about 2 people who refused to let the truth die. Dr. Elias Crowe, who spent 20 years in hiding before making a final stand on a Montana ridge, and specialist Claire Donovan, who survived that night in the forest, who played dead until Webb and his team left, who walked 30 miles to civilization and turned herself in, not to the agency, but to the press. Today, Specialist Donovan is testifying before Congress, telling the truth, exposing the lies. Dr. Crowe's body was never found. Some say he died that night. Some say he's still out there, watching. I don't know which I believe, but I know this. Sometimes saving a life means letting the truth survive, even when it costs everything.